The sky split open like a wound, unleashing sheets of rain that hammered the windshield of my battered old Jeep as if it had personally offended the heavens. I gripped the steering wheel tighter, my knuckles widening, cursing under my breath as the wipers fought a losing battle against the deluge. "Come on, you piece of junk," I muttered, but the engine sputtered in sympathy, the tires hydroplaning on the slick coastal road that hugged the cliffs of Galicia. One wrong turn, and I'd be tumbling into the Atlantic like some forgotten shipwreck. That's when the bridge ahead buckled, not metaphorically, but with a groan of metal that echoed like thunder. I slammed on the brakes, the Jeep fishtailing to a stop inches from the gaping hole where floodwaters had carved away the asphalt. Heart pounding, I killed the engine and stared out at the chaos, waves the size of houses crashing against the rocks below, foam spraying up like angry ghosts. My phone. Dead signal, of course. The nearest town was miles back, and forward was a suicide mission. Panic clawed at my throat until I remembered the faint glow of lights piercing the gloom to my right, a solitary house perched on the hill, the only neighbor in this godforsaken stretch of western Spain. Adeline's place. Of all the rotten luck. I hadn't spoken to her in weeks, not since that awkward wave across the fence when I'd caught her watching me from her porch, her blue eyes holding secrets I wasn't ready to unravel. But options were slim. Grabbing my jacket, I bolted from the car, the rain stinging my face like needles as I scrambled up the muddy path. By the time I reached her door, I was a drowned rat, shivering and soaked to the bone. The door flew open before I could knock. There she was, Adeline, silhouetted against the warm flicker of a fireplace, her long chestnut waves loose and wild, framing a face that always looked like it belonged in one of those old Hollywood romances. Mid-30s like me, but she carried it with an effortless grace, her skin sun-kissed from days tending her garden, faint laugh lines crinkling at the corners of her eyes. "Addison. Jesus, get in here." She yanked me inside, her voice a mix of alarm and that soft lilt she'd picked up from years in Europe, American roots tangled with something more worldly. The door slammed shut behind me, muffling the storm's roar to a dull thrum. Her cottage smelled of chamomile tea and aged wood, a far cry from the sterile apartment I'd left behind in Seattle. I stood dripping on her wool rug, water pooling at my feet, while she bustled about, tossing me a towel and a dry sweater that smelled faintly of lavender. "What the hell happened?" "I saw the bridge go from the window, thought you were a goner." "Lightning must have hit it," I said, peeling off my jacket with chattering teeth. "Road's out. I'm stranded." The words hung heavy, mirroring the weight in my chest. Stranded. That's what my life felt like these days, washed up on this rocky shore after fleeing a marriage that had crumbled like dry clay. My ex, Tom, the steady architect with his pressed shirts and empty promises. We'd come to Spain for a fresh start 2 years ago, chasing some dream of European bliss. But the fights escalated, the silences grew, and one rainy night in Santiago, he packed his bags and left without a backward glance. I'd stayed, too stubborn or too broken to go home. Adeline handed me a mug of steaming tea, her fingers brushing mine just long enough to send a spark up my arm. "Well, you're safe now. Storm like this could last days. Mi casa es su casa." She smiled, but there was a flicker in her eyes, something guarded, like she was holding back a tide of her own. We settled by the fire, the flames crackling in the stone hearth, casting dancing shadows on the walls lined with bookshelves groaning under volumes of poetry and travelogues. Adeline had moved here 5 years ago, she once told me over shared fence chats, escaping the grind of New York graphic design gigs for this quiet life of sketching seascapes and growing heirloom tomatoes. We'd bonded over little things, complaining about the feral cats that roamed the hills, swapping recipes for paella that never quite tasted right without the right saffron. But lately, her glances lingered, her questions probed deeper, about my sketches. I was an illustrator, freelancing for children's books, about why a woman like me ended up alone in a place like this. As the wind howled outside, rattling the shutters, conversation flowed easier than it had in months. She poured wine, robust Galician red that warmed me from the inside out, and we laughed about the time I tried surfing in a Coruña, only to get dragged under by a rogue wave. You look like a furious seal, she teased, her laughter rich and unfiltered. For the first time since Tom left, I felt seen, not as the discarded wife, but as Addison, the girl who'd once dreamed of illustrating epic adventures, the one who still believed in second acts. But as the night deepened, the storm's fury mirrored something stirring in me. Adeline refilled our glasses, her movements graceful, and when she sat closer, our knees brushing under the throw blanket she draped over us, I didn't pull away. You know, she said softly, staring into the fire, I've always admired how you carry your storms, Addie. Quiet, but fierce. Like the sea out there, unpredictable, but beautiful. The nickname, Addie, hit me like a wave. Only my closest friends back home used it, and hearing it from her lips felt intimate, dangerous. I turned to her, our faces inches apart in the firelight, and for a heartbeat, the world narrowed to the curve of her mouth, the way her breath hitched. Then thunder boomed, shaking the house, and she leaned in, not for a kiss, but to steady us both as a gust battered the roof. Sorry, she murmured, pulling back, but her hand lingered on my arm. These old walls creak like they're telling stories. We talked until the fire died to embers, sharing fragments of ourselves. I confessed the ache of divorce, how Tom's betrayal, his affair with a colleague, revealed in a cold email, had left me questioning every connection I'd ever made. She listened, nodding, her eyes never leaving mine. Betrayal's a thief, she said. Steals your trust, leaves you hollow. But sometimes, it clears space for truth. Her words lingered as we retreated to the guest room, a cozy nook with a window overlooking the churning sea. I lay awake, the rain a relentless drumbeat, replaying her touch, her voice. Adeline. What was it about her that pulled at me like the tide? I'd always known I was fluid in my attractions, college flings with women that I'd buried under the weight of normalcy, but here, in this storm-swept isolation, the lines blurred. Morning brought no reprieve. The sky hung low and bruised, the bridge still a twisted ruin per the crackling radio report. Flood warnings for all of Galicia, the announcer droned in Spanish. Adeline whipped up breakfast, tortillas de patatas fluffy with onions and peppers, and we ate on the porch, bundled in blankets, watching the horizon swallow itself in gray. Looks like we're in for it, she said, but her tone was light, almost relieved. Days blurred into a rhythm, morning sketching by the window, her with charcoals, me with watercolors, afternoons hiking the drier trails when the rain paused, evenings lost in stories. She read me Lorca poems in her accented Spanish, her voice weaving magic, and I shared tales from my Seattle childhood, rainy days building forts with my artist mom, who taught me to see beauty in the broken. Adeline opened up too, her own fractured family, a father lost to addiction, a mother who'd remarried and faded away. I came here to rebuild, she said one night, as we walked the cliff path under a brief starbreak. To find pieces of myself I didn't know were missing. On the third day, the air thickened with unspoken tension. We'd been chopping vegetables for stew when her knife slipped, nicking her thumb. A thin line of blood welled up, and without thinking, I took her hand, pressing a cloth to it. Time slowed, her pulse under my fingers, the warmth of her skin. She looked up, eyes searching mine, and whispered, Addie, there's something I need to tell you. My heart stuttered. The storm outside picked up again, wind whipping the olive trees into frenzy. But before she could speak, a crack of lightning lit the room, and the power flickered out, plunging us into shadow. Candles. We needed candles. In the candlelit kitchen, shadows danced like uneasy specters on the tiled walls as Adeline lit the wicks one by one. The stew bubbled forgotten on the gas stove, its aroma mingling with the ozone tang seeping through the cracks. I released her hand reluctantly, the metallic scent of blood faint but insistent, a reminder of fragility. It's nothing, she said, flexing her thumb with a wry smile. Just a scratch. But that thing I wanted to say. She trailed off, busying herself with plates, but the air hummed with anticipation, heavier than the barometric pressure drop before the next downpour. We ate in near silence, forks scraping porcelain, the storm's symphony outside filling the gaps. Rain lashed the windows in erratic bursts, and every thunderclap felt like a punctuation to the words she wouldn't release. After dinner, we migrated to the living room, the fire rebuilt into a roaring blaze. Adeline poured brandy this time, smooth, amber liquid that burned going down and loosened tongues. Curled on the sofa, knees touching again, she finally broke the quiet. Do you ever wonder why people come into your life at exactly the wrong, or right, time? Her voice was low, threaded with vulnerability. I sipped my drink, the warmth spreading to my chest. All the time. Like Tom showing up when I was still grieving my mom. Or you, next door when I needed a friend most. Friend. The word tasted inadequate, a placeholder for the pull I felt toward her, the way her laugh lit something dormant in me, the ease of her presence like slipping into sun-warmed sheets. She set her glass down, turning to face me fully, the firelight gilding her features. I wasn't always just a neighbor, Addie. When you and Tom moved in, I knew him. From New York. The confession landed like a stone in still water, ripples spreading shock through me. Knew him. My mind raced, flashes of Tom's late nights, at the office, his vague stories of old contacts. What do you mean, knew him? My voice came out sharper than intended, edged with the old betrayal scar. Adeline's eyes dropped to her hands, twisting in her lap. We dated, briefly. Years ago, before he met you. It was nothing serious, a few months of city nights, gallery openings, the kind of whirlwind that burns out fast. He was charming then, full of big plans. But when it ended, it was messy. He ghosted me after I told him I was exploring my feelings. 4 women, too. He called it a phase, said I was confused. She laughed bitterly, a sound like breaking glass. I left New York soon after, came here to shake him off. Then you showed up with him, and I saw the way he looked at you, like you were his redemption. I kept my distance, figured it was fate's cruel joke. The room tilted. Tom, with his easy smiles and whispered apologies, had carried that history like a hidden blade. And Adeline, watching from afar, knowing the man who'd hurt her was hurting me too. Betrayal layered upon betrayal, a double wound. Why didn't you tell me? I whispered, anger flaring hot. All those fanside talks, you could have said something. Warned me. Her face crumpled, tears catching the firelight like diamonds. I tried, in my way. Remember that night you came over after the big fight, drunk on vermouth, ranting about his lies? I almost told you then. But you were so raw, so trusting in your pain. I didn't want to shatter you more. And selfishly. I fell for you, Addie. From the first time you waved hello, paint smudged on your cheek, sketching the sunset. It was like seeing color after years of gray. The admission hung between us, electric as the storm. Fell for you. My pulse thundered in my ears, drowning the rain. I'd felt it too, the spark when our hands brushed, the ache of her absence during my loneliest days. But this? It was a revelation wrapped in thorns, Tom's shadow looming over what could have been pure. I don't know what to feel, I admitted, standing abruptly, the brandy sloshing in my glass. Angry at him, at you for hiding it. Confused about us. I paced to the window, pressing my forehead to the cool glass, watching lightning fork across the sea. Waves hurled themselves at the cliffs, foam exploding in futile rage, much like the turmoil inside me. Adeline rose, crossing to me with tentative steps. I never meant to betray you. Hiding was my cowardice, not malice. But loving you. That's the truest thing I've ever done. Her hand hovered near my shoulder, not touching, waiting for permission. I turned, meeting her gaze, and in that moment, the dam broke. Not with words, but with the raw honesty in her eyes, blue as the hidden coves we'd hiked, depths I'd only glimpsed. Show me, I said, a voice barely audible over the gale. Show me it's real. She did, slowly, deliberately. No rush, no desperation, just her fingers tracing my jaw, soft as sea mist, then her lips brushing mine in a kiss that tasted of salt and second chances. It was tentative at first, a question, then deepening as I leaned in, my hands finding her waist, pulling her close. The world narrowed to the press of her body against mine, warm and yielding, the storm outside fading to background noise. Kissing Adeline felt like coming home to a place I'd never known I missed, gentle explorations, breaths mingling, hearts sinking in quiet rhythm. We broke apart breathless, foreheads touching, and she whispered, "I've dreamed of this. Not in the storm, but with you safe, whole." Laughter bubbled up, shaky and real, cutting the tension. We sank to the rug by the fire, wrapped in each other's arms, talking through the night. She shared more, letters from her mother she'd never sent, sketches of me she'd hidden in a drawer. I confessed my buried attractions, the women from college who taught me desire's quiet fire, the fear that had kept me in Tom's cage. Dawn crept in gray and sodden, the storm easing to a persistent drizzle. We ventured out to assess the damage, hands clasped, the bridge still impassable but power lines humming back to life. Hope flickered, fragile as new growth after flood. But as we returned, sodden and exhilarated, a truck rumbled up the drive, repair crew, radios crackling with updates. Road'll be open by evening, the foreman called in broken English. Relief warred with dread. Leaving meant facing the world beyond this bubble, the judgments of small-town expats at the echo of Tom's ghost. Adeline squeezed my hand, her smile steady. Whatever comes, we're in it together now. Yet as the day wore on, doubt crept in like fog off the sea. While she napped, I rifled through her desk, foolish, invasive, finding a faded photo, her and Tom, arms linked at a rooftop party, her eyes alight with what looked like love. Jealousy twisted, irrational but sharp. Had she truly let him go? Or was I just the rebound in a foreign land? Evening brought the call I dreaded. My phone, charged at last, buzzed with a Seattle number, my sister, frantic. "Addie, Tom's back in town. Says he's sorry, wants to talk. And he's got news about Mom's old trunk. Something you need to see." The trunk, locked away in storage, filled with letters Mom had left, clues to her own hidden life, perhaps why she'd always hinted at unspoken truths. The bridge was fixed, tires humming on fresh asphalt as I drove away from Adeline's, her kiss lingering on my lips, her secret a weight in my chest. But Tom's shadow loomed larger now, pulling me back across the ocean. Betrayal's echo, not just his, but the fear that Adeline's love might fracture under scrutiny. The flight to Seattle was a blur of recycled air and regret, the Atlantic a vast mirror reflecting my fractured reflection. I'd left Adeline with a promise, "I'll call when I land, figure this out," but the words felt hollow even as I said them, the sting of that photo burning like an accusation. Was I running from her, or toward the ghosts I'd buried? Tom's text waited in my inbox, at the house. "Come alone. It's important." Alone. As if we hadn't already danced that toxic tango. The city greeted me with its familiar drizzle, a pale imitation of Galician fury. Our old craftsman house, his house now, per the divorce papers, loomed on Queen and Hill, porch light glowing like a siren's lure. Tom opened the door before I knocked, looking older, wearier, salt and pepper at his temples, eyes shadowed by whatever regrets haunted his corner office. "Addie," he said, voice rough. "You look radiant." "Don't," I snapped, brushing past him into the living room, unchanged, leather sofa, abstract prints I'd chosen. The trunk sat open on the coffee table, its brass latches sprung, yellowed envelopes spilling like forgotten confessions. "What is this? Why now?" He sank onto the couch, rubbing his face. "After you left, I found it in the attic. Read the letters. Your mom. She was like you, Addie. Fluid. Loved a woman once, before Dad. Hid it for the family, the era." The trunk was her way of leaving breadcrumbs. He slid an envelope toward me, addressed in Mom's looping script, "For Addison, when you're ready." My hands trembled as I broke the seal, unfolding pages brittle with age. Words poured out: Mom's youth in the 70s, a summer love with a painter named Elena, stolen moments in hidden parks, the heartbreak of choice, family or freedom. I chose safety, she wrote, but it cost me pieces of my soul. Don't make my mistake, darling. Love who lights your fire, no matter the storm. Tears blurred the ink, a sob escaping as truths I'd sensed but never voiced crystallized. Mom, my quiet muse, had lived the lie I'd almost died in. Tom watched, silent, then I read them too. Saw myself, the safe choice, the cage. That's why I left, Addie. Not just the affair, but because I knew I was dimming you. And Adeline. She told me, months ago, in an email. Said to let you go, that you deserved real light. Adeline. Email. Rage surged, hot and clarifying. You talked to her. After everything. I stood, envelope crumpling in my fist. She kept your secret, and now this. What else are you hiding? Nothing, he said, standing too, hands raised. She reached out after you moved, concerned, as a friend. Told me to fight for you or set you free. I chose wrong. But seeing you now. You're free. Go back to her. The irony twisted like a knife, Adeline, protecting me even from afar, her betrayal, a shield forged in love. I stormed out, the door slamming like thunder, driving aimless through rain-slick streets until I pulled over at Discovery Park, waves crashing below like old friends. Dialing her number, the line crackled, time zones, storms lingering in Spain. Addie. Her voice, sleepy and warm, wrapped around me. You're back. Not for long. I poured it out, the trunk, Mom's letters, Tom's confession, the photo that had unraveled me. Silence stretched, then her laugh, soft and knowing. That picture. From a group night, Addie. He was already fading, I was saying goodbye. But you. You're my horizon. We talked until dawn crept over the sound, plans forming like clouds parting. I'd sell the house, tie up loose ends, return to Galicia not as a refugee, but a wanderer coming home. No more secrets, I vowed. Just us, building something true. Weeks later, the jeep crested the hill, the cottage a beacon against the receding sea. Adeline waited on the porch, sketchpad in hand, her smile breaking wide as I parked. We embraced under a sky finely blue, the air crisp with salt and possibility. No grand gestures, just her hand in mine as we walked the cliffs, sharing Mom's letters, her own hidden drawings of us, not as victims of storm, but survivors dancing in its wake. Life in western Spain unfolded human, imperfect, mornings tangled in sheets, her head on my chest, afternoons arguing over gallery submissions, mine for kids' books, hers for abstract emotions, evenings with neighbors who raised eyebrows then glasses in toast. Betrayal scars faded, not erased, Tom's emails tapered to amicable check-ins, a bridge rebuilt in civility. Mom's truth became ours, a legacy of courage whispered in quiet moments. One stormy eve, as thunder grumbled distant threats, Adeline traced my palm by candlelight. We made it through the worst, she murmured. What's a little rain now? I kissed her knuckles, the world steady at last. In the heart of Galicia's wild embrace, we'd found not just love, but grace, the humanistic art of forgiving, of choosing light over shadow. And in that choice, our story bloomed eternal, roots deep as the cliffs, wings wide as the sea.